Poštovani gledalci, dobrodošli u emisiju Granice Istoka. Ja sam Harun Karčić. Libija, zemlja koja je 1970. i 80. slovila za prosperitet i blagostanje na sjeveru Afrike i Bliskom istoku, danas se smatra propalom državom. Nema centralnu vladu koja bi kontrolisala cijelu zemlju. Pokrajine, a i mnogi gradovi, pod kontrolom su mnogobrojnih suprotstavljenih milicija. Te oružane frakcije imaju podršku susjednih, evropskih, ali i zaljevskih zemalja. Je li za nered u Libiji krivo arapsko proljeće, kao što neki tvrde, ili decenije autokratske vladavine Muamera Gaddafija, koji nije ulagao u razvoj državnih institucija? Analiziramo u nastavku naše emisije. Prije razgovora sa našim gostima, pogledajmo uvodni prilog o posljednjim dešavanjima u Libiji i naporima da se pomire oružane frakcije u zemlji.
Naoružane grupe u Libiji nastavljaju primati pomoć zemalja koje izvana pokušavaju kontrolisati ovu državu bogatu naftom, tako kaže UN-ov ekspertski panel. Nakon što je 2011. godine svrgnut Muamer Gaddafi, Libija je kliznula u građanski rat. Međunarodne sankcije uvedene su kao odgovor na sistematska kršenja ljudskih prava. U posljednjem izvještaju o Libiji UN-ov panel imenuje države koje direktno ili indirektno doprinose rasplamsavanju sukoba. U njemu se spominju i stalni vazdušni udari egipatske avijacije na Al-Hilal, područje bogato naftom. Podrška je to odmetnutom generalu Halifi Haftaru. UN-ov panel prošlog juna prijavio je da Ujedinjeni Arapski Emirati krše međunarodno pravo jer snabdijevaju Haftarove snage helikopterima i drugom vojnom opremom. Grupe lojalne Haftaru optužene su za otmice, mučenja, nelegalna hapšenja i vansudska ubistva građana Libije, među kojima su neki političari, aktivisti i vjerski službenici. Marina Mitrović, Al Jazeera.
Libija je imala burnu historiju tokom 20. ali i od početka 21. stoljeća. Pogledajmo hronološki pregled najvažnijih događaja u toj državi. Idemo sada do Tripolija gdje se nalazi naš novinar Mahmoud Abdelwahed koji će nam detaljnije pojasniti političku situaciju u toj zemlji. Mahmoud, hello and welcome to the Al Jazeera Balkans channel. Now, there have been quite a number of attempts to reconcile Libya's rival governments and armed factions loyal to them, but progress has been rather slow. In your view, what are the main obstacles that prevent the formation of a unity government?
Well, Harun, on top of these obstacles, unfortunately, or the reason behind the obstacles, unfortunately, is state institutions, and namely the parliament, the House of Representatives that is based in the eastern city of Tobruk, which has been described by some analysts as the worst parliament in the history of Libya. This parliament is so much divided, and it has been derailing the formation and the endorsement of the National Accord government, the UN-backed National Accord government, for the last 3 years. Now, this parliament is so divided along ethnic, regional, and ideological lines, and it has not held a proper session in the last 2 years. There is a bloc in that parliament headed by the speaker, Agila Saleh, and that bloc is backing the renegade general, the warlord Khalifa Haftar. And so many parliament members from the southern and western areas have not attended. They have been boycotting the sessions of the parliament for the last 3 years. So the parliament has not held a proper session in years, and the main dominant bloc in the parliament, which is mainly from the eastern region of Cyrenaica, is supporting and backing the warlord Khalifa Haftar, and they want to impose him on the National Accord government or on any National Accord government. Also, the government itself, mistrust and misrepresentation are two keywords in the formation of this government. Many people in Libya, they are not okay with this government, with the performance of the government. They describe it as a weak government that cannot reign on the armed groups and cannot reform the economy. As you know, Harun, that two main members of this presidency council headed by Sarraj, they have boycotted the presidency council since it was first formed in 2016. The two members are from the eastern city, from the eastern region of Cyrenaica, and they are supporting renegade general Khalifa Haftar. So many obstacles, but on top of them, the state institutions, and namely the parliament, which is based in the eastern city of Tobruk, has been derailing the formation and the endorsement of this government.
Right. Now, Mahmoud, Libya today has a large number of armed groups controlling different towns and provinces. These factions enjoy foreign backing. Who are the main foreign backers of these militias, and what agendas do they have in Libya?
Well, on top of them, the United Arab Emirates, Egypt, France, and Russia. The United Arab Emirates has been backing and supporting warlord Khalifa Haftar. It has even established a military base in the eastern region of Cyrenaica. It has so many fighter jets, and it has been supporting Haftar with weapons and ammunition. Also, Egypt has been running the battles led by Haftar in the east of the country. Egypt has been administrating or directing Haftar's battles. The United Arab Emirates has been paying the bills. Russia has been supporting Haftar also, and France. As you know, Harun, that Egypt and the United Arab Emirates, they are against any freedom revolutions in the Middle East, and they are supporting what is called the counter-revolutions. The United Arab Emirates and Egypt are supporting the totalitarian regimes in the area. And also, France is supporting renegade General Khalifa Haftar because he has raised the emblem of fighting terrorism. And also, Russia has the same aim. Russia has been supporting Haftar because it has been selling weapons to Haftar. Russian weapons have been reaching renegade General Khalifa Haftar in his wars against his enemies in the east of the country. So all these four countries have been supporting renegade General Khalifa Haftar, but they have also aims inside Libya, and they have their agendas in the country.
But Mahmoud, General Khalifa Haftar was previously close to the CIA during the 1980s, and now he's a frequent guest in Moscow. What exactly, how did the switch come about? Why did he turn to Russia instead of the US?
Well, as you know, Harun, that Russia has been supporting totalitarian regimes in the area, military rules in the area, like in Syria, for example. It has been supporting Bashar al-Assad against his people. And also, Russia has a political and economic aims in Libya and in North Africa generally. It wants to have a rule in Libya and North Africa, and among European players, European parties in Libya, and American rule in Libya. So Russia wants to have a political rule among all these players in Libya. And economically, Russia wants energy. And you can notice in every place that has gas pipelines to Europe, Russia wants to be there. Russia wants to have some kind of pressure or some kind of tools to put pressure on these parties. So Russia wants the energy in Libya and wants to play a political role also in Libya, and it also wants to sell weapons to the conflicting parties in Libya through Russian weapons manufacturing companies.
Despite recurrent security problems that have affected the output from Libyan oil fields, the NOC's revenue has been boosted this year by higher oil prices and production. Yet it has been difficult to use oil revenues to drive economic recovery and ensure a fair distribution of wealth across the country. Who exactly controls Libya's oil fields?
Well, the majority of Libya's oil fortune comes from the east and the south of the country. And those two parts are under control of forces loyal to Warlord Khalifa Haftar. And as you know, Harun, by the way, the National Oil Corporation, the state oil firm, says that this year the oil revenues have reached $24.2 billion by the end of this year, 2018. But yet the economy has not revived completely yet, has not revived as expected yet. Why? Because, first of all, the oil revenues are not going to Libya alone. As you know, that there are companies, foreign companies that have long-term contracts with the Libyan institutions or oil firm, and also the oil installations and oil ports in the east of the country have been blocked for 3 years. They were blocked by armed groups led by the former chief of the Petroleum Facilities Guard for 3 years, from July 2013 until August 2016, which cost the Libyan treasury more than $100 billion. So the oil in the east and in the south of the country is under the control of forces loyal to Warlord Khalifa Haftar, and they blackmail the state frequently. We have been witnessing frequent shutdown of oil installations and oil ports and oil fields in the east and the south of the country. And also, again, Harun, the oil revenues come not only to the Libyan state, but also to the foreign countries which have long-term contracts with Libya. And the oil revenue that comes to the Libya's central bank is divided between Libya's central bank in Tripoli and the other in the eastern city of Al-Baida. As you know, Harun, the division in the country, we have two or dual institutions of the same central bank. One in Tripoli is allied with the National Accord government, which is internationally recognized. The other in the eastern city of Al-Baida, which is loyal to renegade General Khalifa Haftar. And also the corruption in the country and dual jobs and unaccountability and lack of transparency, that all wastes a lot of all these oil revenues, Harun.
Right, Mahmoud Abdelwahed, it was a pleasure having you on Al Jazeera Balkans. Thank you so much for your time. Poštovani gledalci, bio je to Mahmoud Abdelwahed, naš novinar iz Tripolija. Deseci hiljada migranata godišnje pokuša doći u Evropsku uniju iz Libije. Zbog čega biraju upravo tu državu kao polaznu tačku, saznajte u sljedećoj grafici. Claudia Gazzini je dugogodišnja analitičarka Međunarodne krizne grupe. Ranije sam razgovarao sa njom o naporima da se obnovi ratom razorena Libija i kako je moguće ravnopravno rasporediti novac međunarodnih donatora političkim frakcijama u toj državi. Claudia, once again, hello and welcome to the Al Jazeera Balkans channel. Now, reconstruction is a loaded term, and some might infer that the term means rebuilding of the status quo ante, something which might be neither normatively desirable nor politically possible. To what extent is reconstruction a political term in your view?
Well, reconstruction should be neither a political term nor a term that encompasses this return to the status quo ante. Reconstruction actually should be a vehicle. It can take the form of infrastructural reconstruction, meaning reconstructing the infrastructure that was destroyed by the war, but it can also mean trying to stabilize imbalanced economic policies in certain countries. The country that I follow, Libya, reconstruction intended as infrastructural development doesn't exist. This is a debate that is ongoing for the cases of Syria and Iraq. In Libya, there are two major cities that have been destroyed during the war, Sirte in the center of the country on the coast and Benghazi, but the debate about the physical reconstruction hasn't taken place. Instead, where the focus is mainly in trying to stabilize an economy that has gone off track because of 4 years of low oil production, deficit and macroeconomic imbalances.
How can a country such as Libya use its oil revenues for reconstruction?
Well, in principle, Libya could produce almost 1.8 million barrels a day of oil, which should be able to generate enough revenues to embark on reconstruction plans. But that is not the case. That's not what is happening. For the past 4 years, Libya has suffered a complete downfall or a collapse of oil revenues. Between 2014 and 2016, the oil production went down to 400,000 barrels, and the deficit of the government expenditure was 60% one year, 70% in 2016, and still today the government is running a deficit. So with these numbers, it's very difficult for the internationally recognized government in Tripoli to even consider setting aside funds necessary for the physical reconstruction of the destroyed cities. The other problem, of course, is that we need some sort of political agreement in order to make possible such reconstruction, because Benghazi, for example, is in the area that is outside of the control of the Tripoli-based government. It is under the control of the forces of Khalifa Haftar and the rival government in the east, which is not internationally recognized, and they do not recognize the Tripoli-based government. So you need the funds to start physical reconstruction, and you need also a political agreement.
But what if you have international actors who have different vested interests in Libya? In the case of the Emiratis, they support General Khalifa Haftar, but in the case of Qatar or some other international actors, including Turkey, they support the internationally recognized government in Tripoli. How will this play out on the reconstruction efforts?
Well, see, there are rivalries, of course, at an international level. One side supporting, as you said, authorities in the east and others in the west. Officially, all recognize the international legitimacy of the government in Tripoli, and this is one important thing to underscore. But when we're talking about reconstruction, mainly we're talking about efforts geared in this direction, but through the use of Libyan state funds. We're not talking about donor money for the physical reconstruction of the country, because in the eyes especially of Western donors, Libya is an oil-producing country. Libya potentially has the means to solve its problems with its own revenues. So it's not a poor country, and therefore there's very little incentive of donor countries to put in their money. But of course, these international rivalries can also play out in the way they leverage their authority vis-à-vis the Libyan actors. For example, Russia has contributed by printing money, Libyan dinars, for the authorities in the east. And this has allowed the authorities in the east to bankroll themselves. So there are these indirect ways of intervening, some would say spoiling, the reality on the ground through these type of interventions.
Now, what can international donors do to make sure their money is not used to empower local warlords, restore brutal regimes, or further entrench sectarian divides? What kind of mechanisms can be developed to make sure money goes to the right place?
Yeah, of course, overall, we need to have greater transparency in the way state contracts are allocated, in the way reconstruction efforts are managed. Now, again, one characteristic of Libya is that the way donor money has been spent is very local and very project specific. Most of the donor money has been channeled through UNDP, that has sort of a check and balances mechanism to control that what projects these are funding, this money is funding, are actually geared at improving services. But really these are very minor interventions, small towns outside Tripoli, small interventions in the lighting, for example, of the roads in Benghazi. So there is potential for corruption, but it's very minor, even because the amount of money we're talking about is very little compared to the amount of state money that local actors, militias, political actors can tap into in order to finance themselves and perpetuate what is the Libyan war economy and perpetuate their vested interests. So the attraction of foreign donor money is very little compared to the way in which Libyan state funds attract illicit actors in Libya.
Right. Now, how is it that in the case of Syria, Libya, but also Yemen, there are still no clear positions yet on the institutional mechanism through which reconstruction funding may be provided? Why is it? Are international donors waiting for the conflicts to completely subside and then move on to the reconstruction phase, or?
Of course, there's a tension in the donor community between those who would like to see, first of all, a political settlement and then reconstruction. And I think we can say that in the case of Russia, in Syria, for example, they want to see a full recognition of the regime as the political leader, and hence gear reconstruction as a result of that, and European countries that would like to see some intervention in terms of reconstructing war-torn areas without that policy position. This is a tension that can be overcome by give and takes, and recognizing that it is better to try to improve people's livelihoods in the interim before a political settlement is in place, because if these conditions of life and if IDPs continue for decades outside of their place of residence, then it would be easier to think of a relapse in war and more dire humanitarian conditions. So one has to trace a balance. But again, in the case of other countries, the effort is not so much in the physical reconstruction, but on restabilizing the country's economy. And even there we have a tension between what is a chicken and egg problem? Do we need first a political settlement in order to intervene at an economic level? Or can we intervene at an economic level without a political settlement? The case of Libya has shown that although there has been greater priority given to the economic dimension of the crisis this last year, I think 2018 really shows a shift of rhetoric by the international community, and the focus is on stabilizing the economy. The policies that have been implemented or are being implemented these days still fall very short of being a sound macroeconomic policy that the country needs, and that is because there is no political settlement that enables a unification of the country's economic and financial institutions, and without this unification of the country's economic and financial institutions, they are unable to implement a sound macroeconomic policy.
Right, Claudia, it was a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Kao i brojne susjedne zemlje, Libija se suočava sa brojnim izazovima u tranziciji iz diktature u demokratiju. Taj proces, kao i u slučaju Francuske revolucije, trajaće decenijama. Plemenski i lokalni interesi, kontrarevolucionari, ali i interesi stranih zemalja znatno utječu na proces stvaranja države i međunacionalnog pomirenja. Poštovani gledalci, bilo je to sve u ovom izdanju Granica Istoka. Emisiju možete gledati na našoj internetskoj stranici balkans.aljazeera.net. Hvala na pažnji.